Hey guys, Nick here, and thanks for tuning in to Long Island Wargaming's All Things Skaven series. In this video, I will be going over our core choice, the Stormvermin. So if you don't know anything about the Stormvermin yet, and you want to listen, go ahead. If you want to skip ahead to my analysis and thoughts on the unit, click this link below. And cool, so let's do this. So Stormvermin are a core choice for the Skaven. At 7 points a model, you're going to be getting movement 5, weapon skill 4, which is a little bit better than your clan rats. You'll get strength 3, toughness 3, initiative 5, so that's better than the clan rats, and leadership 5, so they've got the standard rat leadership. Stormvermin can be fielded in units as small as 10, opposed to clan rats and slaves, you need unit size 20 plus. Now, what puts them apart from the clan rats, their equipment, they come with hand weapon, halberd, and heavy armor. So the heavy armor is pretty good. The halberd gives them +1 strength, so they're going to be at strength 4 if you're using the halberd, which is awesome. And then for 1 point a model, you can give them shields. And it depends on what army I'm playing. Will I decide to equip them with shields? So we'll go over that in a second. For your full command, your musician is 5 points, your standard bearer and champ is 10. Now the other cool thing about the Stormvermin is they can take 50 points worth of magic banner, and that's 1 Stormvermin in the entire army. And then the Fang Leader can take up to 15 points for the scavenge pile, which is pretty cool. And then you have your 4 choices for your attached weapons teams. You have your Poison Wind Mortar, your Vorp Fire Thrower, Rattling Gun, and Doom Flyer. Alright, so they also have Strength in Numbers and Scurry Away with like both Skaven, all Skaven units. So let me just go over my thoughts on them in general, and then I'll get a little bit more specific. I used to never use Stormvermin. Why? I didn't have the models, probably because at the time I didn't feel like dropping $50 for 20 guys. I eventually came across some Stormvermin when I got like this jumbo pack from Christmas a couple years ago. GW had like this giant Skaven battalion. It was like $250 or something, and it came with 40 Stormvermin, so I got it because everything that it came with was like, I don't know, twice as much in value. It was like $500 stuff for $250, I believe. And at first I thought I was just going to take a couple of the things and just sell the rest. I ended up building all of it because you can never have too many rats. But Stormvermin, I'm using them a lot more, especially in 8th edition. In 7th edition, I feel like I don't know. I was on the fence with them in both editions, but in general, I'm just using them a little bit more. I think 7th edition, they were decent because your front rank, when they would attack, I mean, you didn't always strike back, so in additional rounds of combat, your initiative usually helped you. But let's talk 8th edition. They're nicely priced. Now, at 2 to 3 points more than a clan rat, their stats are decent, a bit better. I've always liked massing clan rats, but when you're looking for some elite troops and you want less surface area of your army, you want to have some more compact stuff, Stormvermin are the way to go. Now, the shield option depends on the army I'm playing. Let's take a look. Beastmen and Bretonia, I could go either way. Demons of Chaos, I probably wouldn't take a shield. Dark Elves, I would take a shield, I think, just based on the fact that they've got a lot of shooting in terms of their repeater crossbows that are, I believe, armor piercing. I would take a shield just because I'd want to save as many of my Stormvermin as possible. So even a 5/6 armor save after armor piercing, it's pretty good to have. High elves I would definitely bring, because if there's going to be archers or any sort of shooting, your 4-up armor save against strength 3 is completely necessary, and you want to have as many rats as possible for when you do get locked in combat with those high elves. Lizard men, I'd probably bring shields because I'd like to have a save against javelins or blowpipes. Um, Ogre kingdoms. Let's see. I'm being shot at. Because I plan on using the halberd in combat, since you come equipped with it, you might as well use it. Um, the shields for Ogre Kingdoms. Maybe not. I mean, lead belchers have a lot of shots, but I don't believe in the 6+ armor save, so I might just ditch the points and just go for extra guys. Orcs and goblins, I think I've brought shields plenty of times versus orcs and goblins. Not because they've got a super amount of shooting, but I mean, I don't know. I think I just don't have an issue investing in the points for shields. Maybe not for orcs and goblins. I think with orcs and goblins, since they like to mass troops, at least my orcs and goblins player likes to mass troops, I think just having more rats down on the field is a better choice. Versus another Skaven army, sure, I'd bring shields, why not? Empire, definitely bring shields because of the excessive amount of shooting. You want as much armor save as possible. Even if they got guns, fine, I'll go with the 6 armor save, but if it's crossbows, the 5/6 is good. So yeah, that's usually pretty good. Tomb Kings, yeah, I'd take shields because most Tomb King players, from what I see, will take some sort of archery unit, whether it's archer cavalry or foot soldiers with bows. I think it's worth it. The 4+ armor save is always worth it. When you can get it consistently at 4+ versus toughness versus strength 3 siege weaponry or missile weapons, I would recommend it. Vampire counts. I don't know. Probably not. Warriors of Chaos, I feel like is definitely not worth it. No, I wouldn't bring shields versus Warriors of Chaos because they have such high strength infantry, let alone siege weaponry and spells, that I mean, you're gonna want to use the halberds in combat just to wound them, so you're not using shields in combat, and you're not really being shot at for the most part. I don't know. I would just, yeah, Warriors of Chaos, not worth it. Wood Elves, definitely, because if they have lots of bows, you're gonna want that. You're going to want that armor save. I just about always recommend a full command with these guys. For the 25 points is totally worth it, considering they should be an important unit on the field if you're spending 7 points a guy instead of 5 with your clan rats. Now, let's talk about the Fang Leader's option to take a 15-point scavenge pile item. Let's see. Warp Musket? Nah, he'll probably be moving. Poison attacks? Sure, why not? I mean, it's only 2 attacks, but how many points is that? Poison attacks is 15 points. Maybe it's not worth it then. No, maybe not. Tail weapon for 8 points. Sure, why not? Warplock pistol. I think Warplock pistol might be worth it. I'd have to double check the pistol rules because I always get fogged between 7th edition and 8th edition, but can a pistol still be used as an extra hand weapon? Or do you have to have 2 pistols for it to count as an extra hand weapon? I don't know. But either way, after looking at the FAQ or the FAQ, supposedly if you have a Warplock pistol, it counts as having magical attacks, your close combat attacks, if you're using the pistol. So, I don't know. Having a champ with magical attacks, I don't know. That's up to you, but it's cool if you want to counter shot with it. It is warpstone weapon for whatnot. But Rat Hound Bodyguard for 5 points. Make an additional weapon skill 3, strength 3 attacks. That's cool. So I mean, it's fun to do those types of things. I think it brings a lot of character to the unit, let alone the army. But usually when I'm making lists, I don't even think about it. I'm just more big picture. I'd rather just have lots of guys that I'm not thinking about what the champion might do. But let's see. Okay, let's move on to magic banners. Now, they can take one unit of Stormvermin can take a magic banner. What magic banners do I recommend? Well, from the core rulebook specifically, let's go through those first. The Wailing banner, I think it is. I probably wouldn't use it. Cause terror. I mean, I don't know. Not my style. Giving it the Rangers banner, giving them Strider. Nah. Now the Razor banner, giving them armor piercing, is an interesting choice. It's expensive. It's that 45-point banner, but versus certain armies, I think I would bring it, especially if I'm looking at armies that have that like 4+, 5+ armor save. I would probably bring it. Now, armies that have super armor saves, I probably wouldn't bring it. That sounds funny, but against like I don't know, maybe against like Warriors of Chaos, I wouldn't bring it because they're just going to have high armor with their cavalry or their monstrous cavalry that the change from 1 to 2 armor penetration. Let's see. I don't know. I just don't think it's the 45 points is worth it because they're going to have such a good odd for their armor saves that I'd rather spend that 45 or 50-point banner on something different. But, I mean, tell me if you think that's a poor decision, maybe getting that extra armor save to bring Skull Crushers from 1+ armor save to 3+ is worth it. I mean, I don't know. It's a good topic. But, Beastmen, I wouldn't bother. Bretonia, I don't know. They've got such high armor saves that I feel like I'd rather use this point on something else because you're going to be saving a lot of them anyway. I could have that method of thought backwards. I might want to reduce as much armor save as possible. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. Demons of Chaos, Dark Elves might be worth it because if you're fighting your, I mean, I don't know the troops in and out that much for Dark Elves, but for the most part, they're a 5+ armor save army, whether it's light armor shield or heavy armor for their elite troops. To get your attacks at no armor save, -2 armor save per se, is decent. Dwarves, I feel like I would definitely bring it because against Chaos Warriors, against Dwarf Warriors or Longbeards or Hammers, they've got that 5+ or 4+ armor save, and to get rid of that or to reduce it by 2, especially with your initiative 5, you're going to be striking first. You want to get some guys dead. There's no point in getting 10 attacks at initiative 5 if you're not going to kill guys. I mean, you need to be able to start grinding down those dwarves. So I would bring against dwarves. High elves, the same thing. 5+ armor save, I'd bring it. Lizardmen, I'd probably bring it. Ogre Kingdoms, probably not because odds are most of the infantry have light armor or heavy armor, so I feel like the -1 armor save with the strength 4 halberd usually gets the job done. Orcs and goblins, I wouldn't bother. They're not very heavy. They're not a very armor-oriented army unless I plan on getting my um, Stormvermin locked in with Black Orcs. I probably wouldn't bring it. Against the Skaven army, nah. Against Empire, sure, why not? Because they have light armor and shields often enough. Or if you're fighting great swords, they're going to be stubborn, so they're not going anywhere. So you need to kill guys to win that combat. Tomb Kings, I don't know. Maybe. I guess if you're fighting, what are they? Temple Guard? No, that's Lizardmen. Tomb Guard, I think they're called. If you're fighting Tomb Guard, I think they've got some nice armor, so get rid of that. And Wood Elves, I wouldn't even bother. I don't even know why I have Wood Elves on this list. But anyway, moving on, the War Banner definitely wouldn't bring it because Skaven have a better option for that. The Swiftness Banner, sure. Swiftness Banner is interesting because then you'd be giving your Stormvermin movement 6. I've got that right? Yeah, so they'd have movement 6. So I mean, the Skaven is so versatile where you can do these quirky little things. A BSB with, or vice versa, but to have these two banners in one unit, the scurrying banner, the 10-point scurrying banner, and +1 movement banner. I mean, in one turn, you could march your guys 18 inches across the field. Now, depending on how many Stormvermin you have, that could be very nasty to have that many guys up in front of you real quick, whether you do it on turn 1 or turn 2. I'd probably recommend turn 2, this way you could just get them. So if you march them up on a flank, totally throw your opponent off if you've got, 40, 50 Stormvermin sitting on a flank, and then all of a sudden they're moving 18 inches across the field. But in that case, I would actually recommend, no matter what army you're fielding against, bring the shields, because the 2d6, I think the thing does, I think it does 2d6 strength, 3 hits, no armor pen. Why not? Unless it says no armor save. Let me check that. If there's no armor penetration on that item, then let's see. Oh, no armor saves allowed. Never mind then. So don't bring shields. Don't worry about it. You guys are just going to take D3 strength, 3 hits. So hopefully you don't roll 12. Hopefully you only lose 7 guys, maybe 4 or 5 guys on average. So that's an interesting combo. But you sink a lot of points into having your BSB and, whatever. The Lichbone, Magic Res 1, probably not. Just because there's so many other ways to give Magic Res to your units as Skaven. Standard of Discipline is interesting. If you give this banner to Stormvermin and then have a Grayseer in the unit, now they can't use the General's leadership, which could be bad. So let's see. +1 leadership to the unit. So they would have leadership, they would go up to leadership 6. And then from there with 3 ranks they go up to leadership 9. So that's not bad. And then all other units around can use the Grayseer's leadership of, now it's going to be 8. So you'd only need 2 ranks for strength and numbers for units surrounding. Hopefully you're not running down that thin. But if you have a lot of units that don't have strength and numbers, or won't get it because they're outranked, like say Rat Ogres or something similar, it might be worth it. But now that I'm thinking about it, the fact that you lose the option of using the general's leadership for that unit, you kind of want that leadership 10, your leadership 7 with the Grayseer plus the 3 for your rank bonus. So maybe I wouldn't do it. I don't know. I think that's so weird, that banner. Eternal Flame, I give it to him all the time, especially if I'm going to throw them up against trolls. Reroll failed leadership test. Never use it because usually the BSB is close enough. And then the 5-point Scarecrow banner, cause fear to models with flying. I don't look at it that way. I think this banner is just essentially negate terror or fear causing flying things. Because I mean, how many flying things do you actually fight that don't cause fear? I guess. I don't think Pegasus is nice to cause fear, but who plays Bretonia? Nobody that I know, really. Then, I don't know, I think that banner's just kind of, nah, not really worth it. I'd rather spend 5 points on a different banner or something better. So, let's move on to the banners for the Skaven book. Storm banner, I love this banner, especially if you're fighting dwarves and Empire, or anything that's shooty. Maybe even against Ogre Kingdoms, maybe, with the lead belchers, not being able to shoot or hit accurately, the iron blaster not being able to shoot accurately. It has a bunch of different effects, which I think this banner is really cool. For 50 points, activate it, no flying movement is allowed. So against dwarves, it's awesome if they've got a gyrocopter. They can only move 1 inch or whatever it is. -2 to all missile fire is pretty cool. And then all non-magical missile attacks can work on a 4+. That's pretty cool. I think against dwarves and Empire, I'd bring it because I want to get my troops into combat because dwarves aren't coming to me, usually. So I need that turn of negating their ability to have accurate shooting phase. But they're good to have it. And if you are doing a BSB in the unit or the army, I mean, you should always have one in the army, but especially in the unit, the one that you don't want to lose, make sure that's the one that the unit uh, the unit standard bearer has. Um, what else? We've got clan superiority. Now this would be a better option than the +1 combat res banner because as long as you outrank your enemy, you get D3 combat res. I mean, hopefully it's not coming down to, to the wire, but if it is, then you can get a D3 combat res, which is pretty cool for outranking your enemy. But I mean, for 35 points, you get +1. Or for 30 points, you get +1 or maybe +2, +3. So it's just a better choice. I usually don't use that banner anyway, although I usually do always outrank my enemy. One of my favorite banners is the Under Empire banner. Now this is the one that I'd want to give to the unit standard than the BSB because you don't want this banner dying, but in case it affects all units. All units in base contact with the unit bearing this banner suffer 2d6 strength 2 automatic hits. So if you're in combat with multiple units, that's pretty cool, but I usually bring this against toughness 3 armies, low armor save, low armor armies, because, I mean, 2d6 5s to wound for 25 points is just some free bonus hits, and you need to win combat, and your rats usually aren't that great statistic-wise in taking stuff out. And then what else do we have? Dwarf High Banner I think is silly because it helps the opponent, and usually there's enough dwarves to fight back. And then the Scurrian Banner, like I commented on already, will be an interesting combo, but alone, I don't know. With random charge now, is that extra 5 inches worth it? Especially the chance of losing 2d6 strength 3 guys. I don't know. But there's some silly combinations you could do, some funny stuff, which is fun for Skaven. So I got that down with the banners. Let's talk about weapons teams. Stormvermin weapons team. What would I usually do? I recommend, if you're going, usually if I'm doing Stormvermin, I'm going combat, looking to push towards the enemy. If I'm going to be sitting back and playing defensive, why sink the points in Stormvermin? They're more combat oriented for their stats and equipment. Just bring clan rats. But if I'm looking to get to the enemy, which is why I use Stormvermin, I would recommend a Doomflayer because that thing's a good combat support unit. Now sometimes the clan rats can use it a lot more because they can use as much help as they can get. But if you're really looking to, punch a hole in the enemy, go Doomflayer. Rattling gun, I just don't prefer. I know everything in Skaven is random, but this is just very random. At times it might be considered more accurate because you control your randomness and your risk and reward. But warp fire thrower, depends. I mean, usually the thing can't march and shoot, so it will be moving full. It depends. If you want to do something really silly, if you're willing to sacrifice the 70 points, with the warp fire thrower, use it to shoot for turn 2, but stick it in front of the storm vermin, or clan rats for that matter, and just do a counter shot, because this thing can counter shoot, so make sure it's in the right range for counter shooting though, but I don't know. And then poison wind mortar, I think I almost always bring. I think that's just my choice. It's not super accurate like every other war machine, but against the armies I end up playing, a direct hit can cover so many guys, whether they're the large bases like orcs and warriors of chaos, or if they're the regular size infantry bases. You could cover so many guys, and wounding on 5+ is no armor save is just convenient. But yeah, so my choice is usually almost always poison wind mortars. But if you're interested about my full thoughts on weapons teams, switch over to the weapons teams video. I could talk about what I use against different armies. So when it comes time to field these guys and what armies I use them against, lately I've been running them in units of 30, which I believe runs me 265 points with a full command. And I mean, 30 sometimes is enough, sometimes it's not. If the enemy can take out a lot with magic and shooting, I'd up it. Or if that's the case, I would just not use them at all. I like to use them against armies that once I get them I can get them in combat with, because I mean, sometimes against dwarves and empire, it's not worth it because it's just as easy to kill them. So there's less of them, and you're losing more points when you think about it, having them run across the field. So I don't know. It really depends on the army. But I have yet to play enough Beastman games to really come up with an opinion on them. Bretonia, I think they're good against Bretonia, because you're gonna get that your high initiative, so you're going first, hopefully most of the time, depending on. I mean, I'm assuming human Bretonians have initiative 4 most of the time at best. I could be wrong. I don't have a book in front of me, but them with the I don't know. Maybe the Razor Banner would be worth Bretonia. I don't know. Reducing their armor save. But let's see. Demons of Chaos. Stormvermin are decent versus Demons of Chaos. You have the weapon skill 4, which helps you, I guess. I mean, depending on what, because some of the demon stuff I know has good weapon skill. Most cases you don't want to have to hit on 5, especially when your statistics already suck in terms of strength and weapon skill. So weapon skill 4 does help. Against Dark Elves, I think they're decent. Most times, if you're fighting other core, you match their initiative, so you're able to attack at the same time. Dwarves, always on the fence about. I think the Strength 4 is worth it. It's easier to wound, you get that armor pen, but they just get taken out so quickly. I mean, an organ gun is going to kill Stormvermin just as easily as clan rats. So maybe just bringing a lot of clan rats with some heroes in there is the way to go. So usually, the games that I need hero-heavy armies lists, I don't bring Stormvermin. In which case, I've got so many heroes that you might have seen some of my battle reports. I just use the Stormvermins as chieftains with essentially just halberds and heavy armor and maybe a shield. But for the most part, if I'm not using Stormvermin, I'm using extra heroes to make up for that. So sometimes just shuttling your heroes into combat is what you need to do with clan rats. But if you know you can get your Stormvermin into combat without getting shot at or just nuked with magic, I mean, then that might be the other choice. So dwarves, it's hit or miss. It depends on the player, depends on the list, depends on the scenario. Lizardmen, strength 4 is kind of helpful versus lizardmen, but I mean the initiative doesn't really help you here because most lizardmen stuff are low, and if you're fighting units of skinks, hopefully you can kill them whether you have clan rats or stormvermin. Hopefully you can just kill them. That's just sad if you can't. But ogre kingdoms, I think they're pretty important versus ogre kingdoms because you want that high initiative, especially when it gets to the point where they start using, say, man-eaters or heroes that start reaching that initiative 3, initiative 4 area. I mean, of course you should have lots of guys, but when your plague monks are attacking at the same time as ogres, I mean, that's just not good for you. But that initiative 5 with the Stormvermin usually keeps you in the clear, especially when you fight some of the heroes. You want to be able to get your attacks in before they do. But also the Force to Wound with Strength 4, Toughness 4 is useful, and if you're fighting bulls, because I mean, in good matchups, usually your core is fighting other people's core, and your special is fighting other people's special, usually, or at least that's how I look at it. But the Strength 4 Force to Wound, and then the -1 armor save to take out the light armor, unless they're using shields. I mean, I don't know what the meta game right now for regular ogres are, but I usually give them an extra hand weapon. I usually don't give them the Iron Fist, especially since you can't make the Iron Fist a second hand weapon anymore. I don't know why they got rid of that, but so Stormvermin against Ogre Kingdoms is good. Orcs and Goblins, they are decent. I mean, you're already beat them on initiative no matter what. with your clan rats, let alone your Stormvermin. Strength 4 is helpful, but I feel like versus orcs and goblins, it's more of a you gotta stay there as long as you can. At least when I play orcs and goblins, because they have so much damage output, whether it's black orcs or savage orcs. Um, I just feel like I'd rather just have more guys around, so I'd rather lock my strong vermin in with killing some trolls and give them the fire banner, or hopefully some goblins. But when you get them stuck in combat with black orcs or savage orcs, you're gonna wish you have clan rats because you just want more of them, or at least that's how I feel. Unless they're shuttling in a freaking screaming bell, then maybe it's a different story. Maybe you got some buffs in there and some heroes, so maybe that's a different option. But before I go on, let's just talk about that quick. The screaming bell. I usually put the screaming bell in clan rats, but I mean, I might go forward trying it with Stormvermin once in a while, just to see how it goes, especially since the unit is unbreakable, and the clan rats usually don't do that well in combat, so I've yet to actually test that out. I'm going to do that over the next couple weeks. Uh-oh. I just told my opponents in case they're listening to this video, because we like to play closed lists, which doesn't really affect roster creation because you don't know what your enemies bring in until the day of the game, but I just usually like to keep it all a secret. But anyway, against another Skaven, sure, yeah. If I'm fighting another Skaven unit, bring them because odds are if they're getting locked up against clan rats, you have better armor and a better initiative and better weapon skill. So you're hitting on threes, wounding on threes, and hopefully you have a 5+ armor save. Against the Empire, they're good in combat, but they have to get there, so you need to commit with a lot of them. Versus Tomb Kings, sure. Sure, why not? Um, Initiative usually isn't a problem versus Tomb Kings, I don't think. And I don't know. Having that weapon skill is good. Weapon skill 4. Vampire counts? Sure. Warriors of Chaos? Yeah, if you can get them in the combat, they're a little bit better. They're just as easy to kill, I mean, as clan rats, because with the high strength, usually the armor is gone. But if you can get a whole bunch of them in the combat, they match warrior initiative. They beat Marauder initiative, I believe. I don't know if anyone uses Marauders anymore, and if you do, and they work, or you find them cost effective, let me know why or how. And then versus Wood Elves, yeah, bring them. Give them shields. They're very good. They survive. So that's that. But closing thoughts, or maybe about their synergy with the rest of the army. I usually like to use them as where I put my heroes because they're a little bit more survive. They survive a little bit better. I don't know. I guess they could be the hammer unit. Plague monks are a hammer too because they just have a lot of damage output. But yeah, I mean, this is the only infantry that you have strength for. If you're looking for even higher strength, you go with rat ogres, but they're not as survivable, or they don't survive as well because, I mean, it's 40 points for one, and it's only 3 wounds, no armor save, toughness 4, so. But I think that's all I really have to say on the storm. That's all I really have to say on the Stormvermin. Um, yeah, the models are cool. I mean, I used to hate the models, and that's why I never bought them because they just looked impossible. But since I got better at gluing and assembling and painting, what I do is just you gotta when you assemble them, make sure that they're ranking up next to other ones of their type because it's just a disaster if you're trying to just put them together and not really thinking about the unit as a whole because they're just so I don't know wonky with the way they're holding their halberds and such. But they're a cool unit. I have 20 more that I need to assemble, and then after that I'll have 60. And then maybe for shits and giggles, I'll field a unit of 60, which is silly. Um, as some of you might already know, I don't like the horde play style that 8th edition tailors to, but as Skaven you kind of have to do it sometimes. But just out of curiosity, 60 times 70 is 420, which is perfectly fine because, I mean, a unit of 40 Savage Orcs, I feel like, is in that price range. A big chunk of Chaos Warriors is in that price range. So, I mean, it's a lot of guys. And then you give him a command, let's say 25 points. Give him, we'll say, just to play it safe, 25 points of a magic banner. And then you give him a decent weapons team. That's a 520 point unit. It's a big commitment, but should be pretty solid. Should be able to put out a lot of damage, I think. Um, give a hero the Skaven Brew and put it in there. I mean, Skaven Brew I always think is a risk, but with that risk comes great reward. If you can not roll a 1 and get, I don't know, Hatred. Hatred is awesome. Frenzied would be nice, or even if you get Rabid Frenzy. I mean, taking D6 automatic wounds is not fun. Um, take D6 automatic wounds as some of the Ratmen collapse. So, automatic wounds doesn't say no armor saves, but I feel like automatic wounds means they just die. But I guess that's up for debate, or maybe that's an FAQ. But yeah, so cool. Let me know what you guys think on the Stormvermin. I think they're a pretty good unit to have mix in your Skaven rosters. But cool. Thanks for tuning in and listening, guys. Peace.